Welcome back. Today's explainer is diving headfirst into one of the wildest, most fascinating geographical debates on the internet, the ice wall. We're going to unpack the historical roots, modern interpretations, and the hard science to see exactly how a freezing frontier at the bottom of the world became the center of this massive controversy. Let's get right into it. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at two completely different realities that are battling it out for belief right now. On your standard globe, Antarctica is, a massive continent sitting right there at the South Pole. But in the alternative flat Earth model, that continent literally vanishes. Poof. And what replaces it? A massive, ocean-containing ice wall.
Section 1. The Ice Wall Theory.
Okay, so let's nail down exactly what this theoretical frozen structure actually is. In the modern flat Earth model, which has been heavily championed by proponents like Mark Sargent, the ice wall completely replaces the southern continent. So instead of a landmass at the bottom of a spherical Earth, the world is actually a circular disk. And the ice wall, it sits right at the very edge of that disk, acting as the ultimate impassable boundary. And its main job is a big one: to hold our oceans in place. It's supposedly keeping all that water from just spilling right off the edge into, well, whatever lies beyond. It is a concept of truly mind-boggling scale.
But here's the thing. This isn't just some new theory born on the internet. Not at all. The roots actually stretch all the way back to the 19th century. There was this writer and inventor named Samuel Burley Robotham. He went by the pen name Parallax, and he wrote this super influential book called Zetetic Astronomy. In it, he modeled the Earth as a flat disk, completely surrounded by what he called an insuperable boundary of ice. For Robotham, this icy perimeter was an absolute guard, a frozen, dark wasteland that literally marked the end of the line for human exploration. Honestly, it's an epic piece of world building.
Section 2. Mapping the flat plane. So, to really picture the ice wall, we need to understand the alternative map that's built around it. This perfectly illustrates the azimuthal map model used by Robotham and modern proponents alike. Notice how the North Pole sits dead center. And the continents we all know, North America, Eurasia, Africa, they sort of fan out from that center point. Ringing that entire outer edge is the impenetrable ice wall, which is labeled here with an I. In this setup, there is no South Pole to cross over. Any direction you travel south, you will inevitably hit this frozen wall.
And looking at this cross-section from Robotham's work, you really see how the whole shebang is supposed to function. I mean, if the Earth is a flat, contained plane, what's going on with the sky, right? Well, proponents suggest the sun and moon aren't massive bodies millions of miles away in a heliocentric solar system. Nope, they're actually quite small, maybe just 32 miles across, and they circle about 3,000 miles straight up. They essentially act like giant spotlights swinging around the sky to give us localized day and night rather than orbiting around the globe.
Now here's where things get really interesting. When you look at this mapping system, proponents love to point out its striking resemblance to the United Nations logo. And yeah, the UN logo uses an azimuthal, equidistant projection. But for flat Earth theorists, this isn't just a fun cartography coincidence. Oh no. They see this as a huge piece of validation. It is interpreted as an institutional truth kind of hiding in plain sight, almost like global authorities are tacitly admitting the true shape of the world right to our faces.
Section 3. The Grand Antarctic Conspiracy.
Which brings up a pretty massive question. If there's a giant ice wall holding back the oceans, why can't someone just charter a boat, sail down there, and snap a picture of the edge? Well, the model explains this away with a vast institutional cover-up. Proponents claim that the Antarctic Treaty System, which is officially just an international agreement to preserve the continent for science, is actually a strict, militarized blockade. They allege that agencies like NASA are literally guarding the ice wall to keep the public away. Plus, to keep up the whole globe illusion, they state that all spherical space imagery has been totally faked with CGI since 1956, and that this entire secret is kept under wraps through strict compartmentalization at the top.
Section 4. Ice shelves versus ice walls.
Okay, so if the ice wall is a conspiracy, how does the scientific consensus explain the actual towering cliffs of ice down there that inspire these theories? Well, it actually comes from a place of genuine historical awe. Back in the 19th century, when Captain James Clark Ross sailed south, his ships were stopped in their tracks by a seemingly endless wall of ice with cliffs 100 meters high. He aptly named it the Great Barrier. He famously wrote that they might as well try to sail through the cliffs of Dover. That massive, awe-inspiring sight literally became the foundation for modern ice wall claims.
However, modern scientific knowledge establishes that these towering barriers are actually ice shelves. So what is an ice shelf? It's a massive, extremely thick, floating platform of ice that forms when a glacier or an ice sheet flows down to a coastline and spills out onto the ocean surface. Captain Ross's Great Barrier is known today as the Ross Ice Shelf, and it is absolutely huge. You could fit the entire country of France inside it. But here's the absolute crucial point. Ice shelves are attached to a landmass. They are just the fringes of a continent. And they aren't unique to a southern boundary either. We find them in Greenland, Canada, and Russia too. They are geographical borders, not an earth-enclosing wall.
Understanding the difference between a wall and a shelf also clears up a major mathematical debate. You see, proponents often point to the massive 53,610-kilometer perimeter of Antarctica's ice as proof that it's the outer edge of the Earth, arguing that it's vastly bigger than the equator. But science explains this pretty simply. That 53,000-kilometer figure, that just traces the highly irregular, jagged, complex shape of the actual ice jutting in and out of the ocean. Compare that to the 15,909-kilometer circumference of the Antarctic Circle, which is just a smooth, perfect mathematical line of latitude on a globe. They're measuring completely different things.
Section 5. The Midnight Sun Test.
Now, if the ice wall model says a small sun circles like a spotlight over a flat plain, how do we empirically test that lighting system way down south? Well, to settle the debate, an expedition fittingly called the Final Experiment was organized by Will Duffy. He took a team down to the Union Glacier Camp in West Antarctica. And the brilliance of this test was that both opposing sides actually agreed on the empirical parameters beforehand. Since the alternative model features a spotlight sun circling the center of a disk, the sun should theoretically rise and set every single day at the ice wall. So, if they could observe the sun continuously in the sky for 24 hours straight, it would straight up falsify the flat Earth model. They set up to live stream the Antarctic sky for several days,
And the result? The camera clearly captured the midnight sun. This is a very real phenomenon where the sun just stays visible in the sky for 24 hours straight. It happens because the Earth is a globe with an axial tilt, meaning the southern hemisphere is constantly facing the sun during its summer months. Now the crazy part is, the participating flat earthers on the expedition actually admitted to seeing the midnight sun in person. But in a super ironic twist, the broader online community ultimately dismissed the expedition's results. They argued the participants had either fabricated the footage or somehow become compromised by the very institutions they were trying to expose. You literally can't make this up.
Section 6. The Reality of Antarctica. So, moving beyond the empirical tests and historical maps, we really have to ask a deeper psychological question. Why does this freezing, isolated environment attract such intense conspiratorial focus? The answer lies in its utter desolation. Because Antarctica is the only continent with absolutely no indigenous human history, it acts as this literal blank slate that just completely absorbs our cultural anxieties. Without a mundane, day-to-day human history to anchor it, humanity tends to project its wildest mysteries onto the ice. Everything from hidden underground bases to the grandest projection of all, a 200-foot-high ice wall trapping us in a human terrarium.
And so, we are left wondering. Antarctica holds the planet's most concentrated record of deep time. We're talking ice cores that document millions of years of Earth's atmosphere. Yet its extreme remoteness continues to induce this wild mix of fascination and anxiety. As empirical science continues to drill into the deep time of the Antarctic ice, will we ever stop projecting our own monumental myths onto its frozen shores? Thanks for joining me on this explainer diving into the ice wall theory. Until next time, keep seeking clarity, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the sources.